What's going on, everybody? Jason back in the basement. Just wanted to talk casually about probably my second favorite camera of all time. The first one being the X-T1. I'd say that's my favorite. And then the X-T2, I would say the most significant Fuji camera to me. And then my second favorite would be the Xpro2. I really love this camera. I've not been a user of the Xpro2 for, the inception of the series. So I am fairly new to it. I've had this camera for maybe almost 2 years. But I never had an Xpro1. I never had an X100 series camera. So in terms of this hybrid viewfinder APS-C model, this is my first and only thus far. And when looking at all of the cameras that were out there at the time that I purchased it, obviously all three were in existence, the 1, the 2, and the 3. But I chose the Xpro2 because I feel like they got it right with the Xpro2. And I think when you really dial up all the features, you dial up all of the improvements or changes they've made in the series, the Xpro2 is by far, to me, the best one. And I'm hoping that the Xpro4, if there is going to be one, and further improves on the Xpro2 and not the 3. So let's talk about it. So the Xpro2, why did I get it? Well, I love the X-T2 and I needed a weather sealed pair to go with it. And I could have just got another X-T2, but I think the Xpro2 is still, it gives me something different to shoot with. I look at my cameras kind of like cars or, something like that. Like someone who collects vehicles or maybe. And like some days I want to go out with the work truck, and do something fun on the work truck or the pickup. And some days I want to take the Ferrari or the Corvette or the sports car. And so I consider the X-T2 like the work truck. It does everything pretty well. It's a good for everything. You could do street with it. You could do an event. You could do a portrait. You could add a battery grip and get more battery life. It has pretty good video features for what it is, even in today's time. And the XT, 3 and 4 and 5 further improved it. But even then, the XT2 had 4K video, so it did pretty well. Some of the XT1 didn't do well with video. So that's where I think the significance came from with the 2. Weather sealed, it just does everything well. It's got a great viewfinder. Can't knock it. Now, the Xpro2 is different, right? The Xpro2's got a sexier look to it. It's got the hybrid viewfinder, which you don't have on the X-T2. You've got, it's just a different layout. Even this grip on the front just feels good by itself, Doesn't have a battery grip, so it's really limited in that sense. So carrying extra batteries is probably, something you got to do, which I hope the Xpro4 would improve, right? Something to think about. So this is more of like my street photography, fun, adventure, family. It's a serious camera. So this is a pro camera, and I do use it professionally. It can be my A or B camera, but I wouldn't put too many things on it. I have accessory grips and things like that, so I can use bigger lenses on it if I wanted to. But it just feels made for a prime, and in particular, it feels made for this 27mm 2.8. And I got this nice JJC lens hood for it, and really gives it a nice look to it, And I can just screw this off if I want to. So I can screw the lens hood off and just, go with the raw, pancake lens and really keep it low profile, which is what I like to do a lot of times. But especially if you're going to use it professionally or in a serious situation or this bright sun, you can put this nice lens hood, nice square, kind of fits real nicely. I'll put links to below so you can check it out, on Amazon. And I really like it. I really like it for that. And I think what they got right besides that is if you compare it to the Xpro1, you have the diopter adjustment built in. right? So you got that right there. The Xpro 1 didn't have that. You had to screw on, these different lens filters per se, and I think that just makes it harder to deal with. So you probably end up using the back screen more than anything else. Also, the ISO dial was not built into the shutter the way this is. It's built into the shutter on this camera, so you just pull it up and move it. I also set my automatic ISO modes here, so I don't even really touch that. So I set up my 3 ISO banks for ISO 400, 1600, and then 64. So in my different shooting scenarios, I just need to click that to change my auto ISO setting to put me where I want to be. And if I really want to be at the base ISO 200, then I will use, the pull up ISO dial. Of course, over the Xpro 1, you got the weather sealing. So that's an improvement. And you've got 24 megapixels. I might have mentioned that already, but you got 24 megapixels. So you got that step up in resolution, which I think 24 is just enough for just about everything. You can crop, if you got a wide angle lens and you want to crop in, down half for 12. So if you do the math, if you got a 24 megapixel, 24 millimeter lens with 24 megapixels, and you wanted to crop in to get, closer to a 50, then you would be cropping down to about 12 megapixels, which is still pretty good resolution for most things. And so I think that's where we can kind of get caught up in trying to get more megapixels and not really knowing what it's really used for. Because yes, you can get more resolution, but the resolution isn't about just detail. It's about flexibility with lenses. So if you have limited amount of lenses, you can now create scenarios where you can use your one or two lenses and get more out of those lenses because of the resolution that you have. And I think that's where the increase to 40 megapixels is the most significant, and not for just quality, because quality you can get out of anything. I think you can get good quality anything above 8 megapixels probably, right, if you know what you're doing. So I digress. So Xpro 3, what the difference between Xpro 2 and 3 in terms of megapixels is negligible. It went from 24 to 26. That's not significant. I think there was a significant bump in terms of the autofocus. Again, I'm saying all this without using it, so take it with a grain of salt. It's more for conversation, but and justifying my purchase. But to go from 24 to 26 doesn't really mean anything at all, so that's a moot point there. But the biggest difference most people would be polarized by is the screen. The screen, you still have weather sealing, you still have all these other great things, and I'm sure they did improvements to, the autofocus, Wi-Fi, but I don't think the Xpro 2 was bad in the first place for it to really be, something to debate. But the screen was a debate. I personally, for me, that was a no-go. Having the screen hidden just makes everything harder in terms of going into the menus. Like, yeah, you can, chimping is something you do not necessarily want to do. But I think, being able to change settings on your camera, you still want to have access to the screen to do that. You could always just turn your view modes off. You have access to that right there where you can just take the view mode and change it. And, you're good to just use your viewfinder. So I don't think that was a smart move, and I think a lot of times that was Fuji's way of protecting the X100 series, because these cameras are so close in terms of design and philosophy that maybe that was a way to kind of like steer people in the direction of an X100 over the Xpro 3 to almost purposely cannibalize themselves, except for those who would be loyal to the Xpro series, which I think would be a shrinking market over time until they put the right features in. And I think the right features for an Xpro 4 would be to make it like an X100V or X100VI. Give it the tilt screen that it has, that they have now, and also put in the IBIS. I would say in addition to that, give it the bigger battery of the T5, and you can modify the grip because there isn't much grip here, even though it's a really good grip. I must say, for being as small as it is a good grip. Probably the best grip on a rangefinder style, camera that I've had. And now, when I say rangefinder, I mean like small compacts like, Nikon, P7800s, X30s, those kind of small sensor cameras that are like rangefinder look, But it has a good grip for what it is, especially being a bigger, more of a heavier brick camera. But I think even if they improved it slightly and just, give it a little bit more grip to accommodate the battery, I think that would be a welcome improvement. I don't think anybody would question that. And I think I would look forward to an Xpro 4. So if they could do that, you can take my money right now. Sign me up, and I'm still keeping the Xpro 2. I ain't giving this up. So let me know your thoughts. Have you considered an Xpro camera? Do you like the Xpro 3? Do you just want to go straight back to the Xpro 1 and keep it classic, and none of the features or improvements matter to you? You just want to shoot it and go? Let me know your thoughts. That's all I got, y'all. Peace.